Hello guys, this is Mohsin Azam interacting with you from my YouTube channel Business Innovation. Today we are going to start our second part of our lesson number 11, Constraints in Primavera P6. So in the previous lesson, part 1 of lesson number 11, we discussed the hard constraints in Primavera P6. In today's lesson, we will start soft constraints. So what are actually the soft constraints? Soft constraints are used to create restriction on the start and finish date of activity within a project. These constraints allow activities to move within the project, but they will create negative float if the activity start or finish does not meet the soft constraint. In Primavera P6, we have the listed soft constraints. So the first one is start on. Start on constraint set the late or early start date equal to the constraint date, but unlike mandatory start, it will not affect both. This constraint type will protect the schedule logic. So here we have one case study. We have two images here. In the first image we have a small schedule consists of 4 activities, and this schedule is without constraints. And in the second image we have a constraint on activity B. So let us discuss this. So first of all, we have case 1, constraint earlier than the activity start date as per the logic. So if we see here activity B, the start date for this activity as per the logical relationship is 19 October, and as this activity duration is 5 days, it will finish on 23rd October. Now we are keeping the constraint as 17 because here in this case we are keeping the constraint earlier than the logical start date. So we are keeping the constraint as 17. So what will happen? Late start is equal to the constraint date. So Primavera will adjust late start equal to the constraint date, and the start and finish date before and after the constraint will be remain same. And here if we see before the constraint we have 2 days of positive leg. Now by keeping the constraint on 17, P6 will give us the minus 2 days total float, which is because here we are keeping 17 as a constraint, so the late start will be 17, and as the early start is 19, so the difference of late start minus early start will be minus 2 days. Okay, now we have case 2. In case 2 we have the constraint later than the activity start date as per the logic, but within the positive float. So now what we will do, we'll apply the constraint on the same activity B, but it will be after the start date of this activity, but we want to consume this positive 2 days of float. So what we will do, we'll keep the constraint after 19, but not more than 2 days, so that it fall between the positive float. So if we keep constraint as on 21st, early and late start equal to the constraint port, the early and late start will be equal to the constraint date. And if we see here, the start and finish date will also be readjusted. The start will be adjusted also to the constraint date, and the float will be consumed here. Now same case 3, if we keep the constraint later than the activity start as per the logic, but more than the float, as we have here 2 days float. Now if we want to keep the constraint more than float, means the activity is starting on 19, and if we consider 2 days positive float, so we can delay this activity by more 2 days to up to 21st. But if we want to keep the constraint on 22nd, so what will happen? Early start will be equal to the constraint date. So here early start will be equal to the constraint date, and as the difference between the late start and early start will be 1 day, so minus 1 days of negative float it will give, and start here is equal to the constraint, and the start will also be adjusted equal to the constraint date. Now another constraint type is start on or after. Here in case 1, when we are keeping the constraint earlier than the activity start as per the logic, so there will be no effect on the dates, so the start and finish date will not be changed. In case 2, if we are keeping the constraint after the activity start but within the positive float, same as start on, so it will be same as case 2 of start on, means that the start and finish date will be readjusted, and the constraint will try to consume the positive float. Case 3, constraint later than the activity start as per the logic, but more than float, so same as start on here, so it will match also the case 3 of start on constraint and it will adjust the start and finish date. Start on or before. Case 1, constraint earlier than the activity start. This is the case 1. So same as start on here. So case 1 of start on, the start and finish date will be remain same, and it will create a negative float in the logic. Case 2, constraint later than the activity start as per the logic but within the positive float. So any constraint after the logical start will not be affected the network diagram. So means what is actually the constraint type? It is start on or before. So if we keep the constraint after the logical start, it will not affect, because we have the flexibility that we can start this activity before. So if logically the activity is starting before the constraint date, it will not affect. And similarly in case 3 also, any constraint after the logical start will not affect the network diagram. Now the next case is finish on. Finish on constraint set the early and late finish equal to the constraint date, but unlikely mandatory finish. It will not affect both. The constraint type will protect the schedule logic. So now here we have one example. The first image is the normal relationship. We have 4 activities and we have no constraint, and in the second image we have constraint. We have case 1 where we have the constraint earlier than the activity start as per the logic. So if we see here, we are keeping the constraint before the start of this activity, and the constraint is actually 18 of the October. So here what will happen, the late finish will be equal to the constraint date and start and finish will be remain same before and after the constraint, and there will be a negative float created as the late finish is now equal to the constraint date and late start is same as usual, it was 14 October. The second case, we have constraint later than the activity start as per the logic but within the positive float. So if we see here, the dates will be readjusted based on the constraint. We keep the constraint 24, so the activity will now finish on the 24, which is constraint, and the start and finish will be readjusted and the float will be consumed. In case 3, constraint later than the activity start as per the logic but more than the float. So here we have 2 days float. If we keep the constraint more than 2 days, means we can delay the finish of this activity by 2 days, but if we want to delay this more than 2 days, means we want to finish this activity on 26, 27. So what will be the effect? So here we keep the constraint as 26. So earlier finish is equal to the constraint date. So here earlier finish will be equal to the constraint date and earlier start will be remain same. So here the program will give us negative float and the finish of this activity will be delayed will be equal to the constraint. So here next constraint type is finish on or after. So case 1, if we are keeping the constraint before the start of the activity, there will be no effect on the date. Case 2, it is later than the activity start as per the logic but within positive float, same as finish on. So what was the finish on? Case 2, it will be same, means the constraint date will be equal, the finish of this activity will be equal to constraint date and it will consume the float. And case 3, later than the activity start as per the logic but more than float, same as finish on. So what is actually the finish on? This is the case 3 of finish on. So it will be equal to the constraint, the finish of this activity will be equal to the constraint date and it will create a negative float. Now finish on or before. Case 1, if we are keeping the constraint before the start of this activity, start and finish same, late finish equal to the constraint date, negative float because of finish of the activity is not matching with the constraint date. Case 2, constraint later than the activity start as per the logic but within positive float, start and finish same, late finish equal to the constraint date, the positive float will be consumed. Case 3, constraint later than the activity start as per the logic but more than float, no effect on the dates. And the last soft constraint is as late as possible. This constraint type will consume the float of the activities. So whatever the positive float is there, it will try to consume if you keep the activity as late as possible. Now this is actually a general summary. So we have constraint type as start on. So case 1, if we want to start, we keep the constraint earlier than the activity start, so there will be no effect on the start and finish date, and effect on the early and late dates. Late start equal to the constraint date and float is late finish will be early than the early finish, so it will give us negative float. Then start on constraint date later than the activity start but within float, so it will change the start and finish date, and early start and late start will be equal to constraint date, and it will consume the float. Similarly, start on, but if we want to keep the constraint date after constraint date later than the activity start but more than the float, so it will change the start and finish date. Earlier start equal to the constraint date, and as earlier start will be later than the late start, so there will be negative float. Start on or after constraint date, case 1, constraint date earlier than the activity start, there will be no change, so it will not affect the logic. Start on or after constraint date later than the activity start but within the float, so start and finish will change. Early and late will equal to the constraint date, and it will consume the float. Start on or after, and the case 3, which is later than the activity start date but more than the float, so it will change the start and finish date. Early start equal to the constraint date, and early and start will be later than the late start, so it will give us negative float. Similarly, start on or before, so case 1, there will be no effect on the start and finish date, and late start and late start will be equal to the constraint date, and there will be negative float. Start on or before, this is case 2, there will be no change, and start on or before with case 3, there will be also no change. Now finish on with case 1. Case 1 is the constraint. By keeping the constraint earlier than the start of the activity, there will be no change in the start and finish. Late finish will be equal to constraint date, and there will be negative float. Finish on, case 2, there will be no change in the dates, and the earlier and late finish will be equal to constraint date, and float will be consumed. Finish on with the case 3, there will be no change in the start and finish, and the start and finish will change, and the earlier finish equal to the constraint date, as early finish will be later than the late finish, so negative float. Now finish on or after, so here case 1 there will be no change, and in case 2 the start and finish will change, and early and late start will be equal to constraint date, and float will be consumed. In case 3 of finish on or after, there will be no change on start and finish, and earlier finish equal to the constraint date. His earlier finish will be later than late finish, so negative float will be there. Finish on or before. Now in case 1 there will be no change on the start and finish, and late finish equal to the constraint date, and there will be negative float. And finish on or before, there will be no change on the start and finish, and late finish will be equal to constraint date, and float will be consumed. Finish on or before with case 3, there will be no change in the start and finish or in the float. So that's it for today. Please follow and subscribe my YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.